Game Ball, the ultimate ammunition, providing you with this week's episode of the Tweedl Pod. Hi everybody and welcome back to the Tweedl Podcast. We are back here at Churchills with my very dear co-host Robert Fennick. How are you, mate?
Very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good.
Of course, sponsored by Game Ball, and we have a very, very special guest today.
That was for the cartridges, my wolf whistle,
of course.
Not our bank manager who sat over here.
You could, argue that this chap is he is the starter of Field Sports YouTube in my eyes.
Yep.
I've watched him for many, many years, and the whole team at Field Sports channel. The founder, the man behind it all, Charlie Jacoby. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you. I've come as Captain Mannering today. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I think you look very smart,
I
Charlie.
know.
You definitely get the award for the smartest person we've had on.
Absolutely.
Once I knew it was YouTube. Can I explain? Is that all right?
Yeah.
No, we think it's for us. Just pretend.
Obviously, to start our days at EJ Churchill about 6 o'clock in the morning, which it is at the moment, and I started my day in London, so I had to wear this. I was, contractually obliged, all right?
Because you're in London. I do that when I go to London. I don't know why I put on a suit.
Or were you at a dinner last night and didn't take a change of clothes? You had to wear the same.
It's basically, this is the podcast equivalent of a dirty stop act.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You can't. You can take the lad out of Lancashire, but you can't.
So no, let's. We always like to start from the start with our guests. I had a bit of a look last night. 2009 was the first video that went live on Field Sports channel. I think it was at Crufts. Is that right?
That's
right. It's the one that's on the channel now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What at Crufts?
Yeah, the
Yes.
dog show.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
you were
amazing.
highlighting all the gun dogs, weren't you?
Yes, we were. Yeah,
Were you?
we were trying to do a bit of a Field Sports job on it, but
Yeah.
yes, it was.
The BBC didn't highlight the gun dogs on Crufts.
It was at the time of Pedigree Dogs Exposed, so we thought there was a bit of an angle.
Right.
Channel 4 hadn't quite bedded in as the Crufts broadcaster, so and the BBC had just dropped it. Pete Purvis from Blue Peter, who is the Crufts presenter par excellence, the Crufts presenter's presenter, was looking for a job, and we got an interview with him. So it was that
Right.
good.
How fantastic.
Anyway, we changed the business model a bit since then.
Yeah. You don't cover Crufts anymore then, or
No.
anything? No.
No, it's taken a bit of a turn.
Basque Gamekeeper's Ring is about it. My neighbour, Spaniels, which go out on our local shoot, won at Crufts, won the Gamekeeper's
Wow.
prize at Crufts.
You're
Yeah, it was
joking.
amazing. Yeah,
Right, very
absolutely.
good.
Good God.
So how did you get to that point where you thought, right, let's get a camera, let's start up a YouTube channel? What inspired it?
Yeah, exactly. What kind of drugs did we take? Well, it goes back to the 1990s. So David was he was all sorts of things. He was a model. And if you look up the Chip Frisch, which is a German crisps brand ad on YouTube from the 1990s, he's starring in it. It's brilliant. Yeah, just thought I'd get that in there. So obviously when
Every partnership has a good-looking model.
yes, Sam,
Thanks, mate.
he's right, Sam.
Yeah, cheers.
Oh, thanks. I meant
I'll
the other way
take
around,
it.
but anyway, there you go.
Well, Charlie didn't.
So he had that background. By the time we got to the 2000s, he was an ITV producer doing news, and he got me to go out with him to Croatia, and they're doing a film about wild boar.
Yeah.
So and I started chatting to him about, I do magazines, I did hunting, shooting magazines, and maybe we could collide the two ideas. One thing we decided on, YouTube was not for us. YouTube was for skateboarding cats, not for us.
Yeah.
So we definitely didn't start on YouTube, and then we realised our mistake about 3 weeks in, and we did start on YouTube. We just collided the idea of the weekly news magazine, the weekly TV show. We found a place to put it. We were incredibly lucky that YouTube rose at the rate it rose, and touching wood with my right hand, we're still here.
And is that something, Charlie, that, let's go back before that though. Have you always been, for those that don't know you, have you always been a passionate field sports person? I mean, where has this love come from? What?
Yeah. So I was brought up in Somerset. So
Yeah.
So if you don't know, God was born in Yorkshire, but he moved to Somerset.
You definitely avoided Lancashire. I know that, Charlie.
It's becoming a theme of our podcast, that.
Went over to Russell their sheep. That was a bit. We have got a lot of good stuff in Somerset. We've got obviously Britain's highest pheasants. Yeah, I dare you to prove we haven't.
Yeah.
We have in my local river, the River Tone, which was kind of nitrate soup in the 1970s. We actually had a salmon. We had an otter killed a salmon about 20 years ago, even in the River Tone. So we are the best place for
Nitrate soup.
I love it.
Fantastic
I
with his
love it.
words.
I grew up with all this, and I wanted to be a hack. I wanted to be a writer, and in the 1990s, magazines were amazing. I worked for Shooting Times magazine.
Did you?
It told you, not only how to shoot, it told you who to marry. It was the most important.
It was
thing in
like
your
the
life.
Bible, wasn't it?
It was absolutely.
Yeah. It was the shooting Bible.
All magazines were,
Yeah.
and the model was pretty sensible. It took about 600 years to get to that point. It was a perfect vehicle for selling stuff, for telling people about their lives. And the model was based on the idea of, here is something you're interested in, rather than the newspaper headline, which is here is something you ought to know.
Yeah.
And then in 2004, Mark Zuckerberg spoiled everything because he was not able just to say, woman runs off with vicar. He was able to produce a headline that said, your mum runs off with vicar through Facebook, which is far more interesting than a magazine could possibly provide. So once the magazine model was out
I
the
didn't
window...
realise Charlie knew my mum. Do you know that? That's a bit bloody harsh, that, Charlie.
I was looking at Rob and I said, your mum, yes.
Sorry, Mum.
So we had about
She
5
didn't
or
really.
6 years. We just didn't know what to do. And then we were still floundering in 2009. And I suppose we're floundering a bit less. I think it'll still take a generation for it to settle down. I just don't think the internet is not the absolute answer to everybody's marketing or advice problems. But it's heading in that direction.
But now some strong 360,000 subscribers thereabouts now.
We have, yes.
And,
My favourite number is 10 million individual logged in viewers.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Well, it's not just us. You guys, everybody who's on the internet has access to the entire world for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's a time that advertisers, I believe, should be embracing.
Yeah.
And over those years, you've covered some amazing things. I mean, you've just been talking to me earlier about you've just got back from South Africa.
Yes.
Video out soon, which sounds amazing. But what's the one trick that you would just put on a pedestal and go, that's just a once in a lifetime thing? Because you've seen it all, haven't you?
Well, obviously, apart from the personal instruction I received at West London Shooting School, which was really Oh, sorry, did I say that? Did I say that? I'm so sorry. Sorry, Rob. What I mean to say.
I love that.
What I mean to
Charlie,
say.
that was a shocker.
What I meant
That
to
explains because he's a terrible shot. So that would understand.
Yeah, actually, the South Africa film has me trying to shoot a charging buffalo. Luckily, it's simulated, not real, because it was a truly awful shot. Yeah. I managed to get it in the
Took its ear off.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. The guy doing the course said, yes, you have one very angry buffalo. Well done. So, yeah, it's, one of the lovely things has been going to all these extraordinary places. Possibly China, where pheasants come from, was most interesting.
Wow.
Partly because they have a totally different version of, hunting and shooting. It's a big shot.
I remember watching that. You shot driven pheasants there, didn't you?
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, we managed to persuade the guy to get them in the air, but driven's a strong word.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to shoot them on the ground. So why you shoot them in the air? That's stupid. You shoot them on ground, much easier. And he's, in a sense, he was. Although it was very difficult to shoot a bird on the ground, coming from the culture I come from.
Yeah, of course.
You put a shotgun up and you pointing it at a bird on the ground. You're going, this is not right at all.
It's just not right, is it?
No. Obviously, it'd make clay shooting a lot easier from the ground, wouldn't it? But that was fascinating, and they had cultural things like they like me to injure the birds instead of kill them because it keeps them fresh on the way to the kitchen, which is not something.
But that's their way they cook, isn't it? Everything's almost cooked live.
Yeah.
They don't have that squeamishness or humanity, as we might call it.
I struggle with it.
Yeah,
some of the stuff they eat is live.
But we find
crazy.
these things. Do you find this with you? You've got American clients coming in and things like that. Do you find they like to go to Africa to decorate their houses? Is that different to the way we in Britain see things?
Look, I think it's different. The problem is we always think the way we do it and our culture is correct, isn't it? And as you say, there are other cultures and there are ways, and they probably look at us and think we're frightfully strange, don't they? Which
they do,
and everything, and let's be honest, you can't blame them at times, can you? With what's been going on recently.
What do you mean? We look perfectly normal.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think if it's
there's no such thing as normal, is there? I suppose every culture's different, and that's what you guys get to put across on YouTube.
I think that's true. It's quite easy being an anti, actually. If you're an anti all over the world, you believe that white fluffy bunnies are cute. There is no change there. But I think that's, in some ways, hunters, shooters believe that all fluffy white bunnies are cute too. So I think that's a kind of, we're going to an area where the anti-hunters are a bit kind of emotionally one-dimensional. We are emotionally capable of looking at a rabbit and going "ah" and "yum" at the same time.
Yeah.
Which they can't do. But yeah, when it comes to hunting, I mean, all we can agree is we are broadly in this. And when I say hunting, I mean in the kind of US sense. We are all hunters.
Yeah, yeah. And you were saying about your numbers, how many of the huge subscribers that you've got are they? What's the majority are UK, and what majority is from around the world? I mean, America must be a massive part, but what do you have a rough?
Yes,
split.
Very, very exact.
I bet, yeah.
Sometimes you see, once every couple of years I get to corner an advertiser and they can't get away. And they're like, I can tell them all this really interesting stuff. So, we're 25% UK.
Yeah.
We're just under 20% US. Third biggest is somewhere between Germany and Ireland.
Is that right?
Australia's up there. We have 155 countries we reach. Rather marvellously, we have one viewer in North Korea. And we think we know who it is.
Wow.
we think it's the guy with the internet.
God, that's fantastic, isn't it?
It's great. I love that. I love the YouTube
It's a fantastic stat,
Just says, North Korea 1. You go, oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And one thing I wanted to talk about, we did touch on it briefly just before we came live. We've been mentioned on the podcast before, the Grateful Packham.
Oh, the
delightful Packham.
The delightful. Actually, I like Grateful Packham.
Yeah,
that's something. Well,
you've had a bit of a run-in.
Yeah, we had a bit of a run-in. Yes, absolutely. So Chris first appeared on our show in 2017, and he's fairly regular interview appearance, and then he sort of went a bit quiet. We use quite a lot of the same staff as he does because they all freelance in the Bristol area for but Natural History Unit. And
but he accepted to come on. You asked him to come on.
Yes. And
at that time, what would he come on and talk about?
Oh, he'd present his views. He was developing his views at that point. We first had him on when he was in Malta trying to ban the spring hunt for turtle doves, and we were getting a bit. He was telling stuff that we felt we know wasn't true, like Maltese turtle doves end up in the UK and they don't, and he was kind of playing with the numbers a bit. The Maltese actually release more turtle doves than they shoot. They only shoot 5,000. He was ignoring the fact the rest of Southern Europe was at the time shooting about 2 million.
Yeah.
And in North Africa, many, many millions. So this idea of, let's crack down on this one tiny state that's shooting 5,000 when they're releasing more of them than they're shooting, what was the point of that? And the point became, as far as we could tell, apparent that he wanted to get hunting banned in an EU member state, and that would be a significant scalp for him.
Yeah.
So he's very good at these sort of big political things, and you cannot, with Chris, take him at absolutely face value and just have him on and why don't we chat about this stuff, and my God, I put my view and you put your, that doesn't work. You have to have another agenda. So I think it was a year or two before he got really cross and took us to court, we invited him to the game fair. Now, I don't know if you've probably seen Basque and GWCT and Countryside Alliance, unite frequently these days and say, we condemn this. Up until that point, they'd hardly ever united on anything until they all united and said, Charlie, do not invite him to the game fair.
I remember that.
What year
I
was
do remember.
that?
That wasn't that long ago, was
I
it?
think it was 2019. Strangely, anything before COVID, I just kind of
it just goes into a blur. Yeah, it does.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
The first shot of the day.
First shot of the day.
37p.
Didn't hear the horn blow. Fine.
So we invited him on. They disinvited him. They said it was something to do with his security, which is a really silly thing to do.
Because I remember it all kicking off on, dare I say, social media then, wasn't it? And then going, he would fear for his life, and then people were saying, I can't wait.
He loved all that. Yeah, exactly. That was great. But then he invited me to Bird Fair, which was basically the kind of bird watchers equivalent of Game Fair. So Bird Fair is tiny. There's a few hundred people go to it, and I think it might. I don't know if it has or not, but it might not be happening this year. But Game Fair is enormous. It's over 100,000 people. And I go onto the stage, and it's packed with Packham supporters. I'm torn apart by wild animal activists. But I'm doing it for this specific reason, not just because I want to jolly chat with Chris Packham, but because I want to do two things. We want to get media of him. We had no media of Packham. It all belonged to ITV and BBC, so we couldn't use it. And secondly, he very easily trots out fibs about, grouse moors are complete deserts, you're killing all the hen harriers, all these sorts of things. It didn't really matter what I said in answer because, he's very good. He's going to kick me around the studio. But if I got him to say it, then we capture that on media, then we can answer that. And, social media, social TV
will do
is
its
where you
job.
need to put these things.
Yeah.
So I imagine he walked away from that pretty cross. And we didn't hear very much from him for a year or two. And then about 8 months afterwards, his solicitors got in touch and said, we are going to, take you to court over something you said. I can't tell you what it is we said,
Right, okay.
obviously, but you can look it up, can't you? So it's not that hard. So that's what they did. And I think there were 3 parts to it. It took about a year. The first thing that happened, I don't think their solicitors were terribly good at what they did. They were not a natural choice as defamation solicitors, and they made a lot of pretty basic errors at the start. And one of the things they did was they chose to sue Field Sports Channel Limited, which is a company that has no income. It's just it's a company in our pile of companies, but they chose to do that because I think they'd seen we're called fieldsportschannel.tv on the internet.
Yeah.
What they should have done was sued Field Sports Television Limited. So we were able to get a headline into the Daily Mail, Packham sues wrong company, which made them really cross. So that was one thing. Another thing was they clearly wanted to kill us. They wanted to kill us corporately, and they failed to do that. So I felt that was a win as well. In the end, he has his television money. He has his lovely money he gets from doing his BBC things, and YouTube is not that good an income provider.
No.
And in the British court system, much as we love it and much as I prefer it to anywhere else I've seen in the world, you pay to play, and there is no way we could match his cash. Our supporters were incredibly generous. Our solicitor said this is going to cost you £70,000 to lose, and we said in court, and we said all right. And our supporters came forward and paid that £70,000 for us. So
Did they really?
Fabulous, yeah,
Oh, amazing.
Really,
Was that
really
the time when you set up the Field Sports members?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think that was a tactical mistake. So Chris's friends set up a crowdfunder. The trouble with crowdfunders is, you sort of pay your 10 quid. I supported Chris Packham. That's all I need to do. The great thing about membership is it's a much more, it's an ongoing commitment, and it's a commitment not just to winning the Chris Packham case, but to the sense that Field Sports Channel gets the message out onto YouTube, which is where you can reach a much wider audience than the old idea of the magazine.
But also they'll then get bonus content and merchandise, and
they get a goodie box.
A goodie box,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And actually now they get insurance, which is
amazing.
Amazing, yeah, exactly. And they seem to like that. So yeah, bless them all. They joined up in droves. So in some ways he did us an enormous favour. It was a pretty exhausting year.
Did it take its toll on you and the team, for your morale? Did you think, flipping out, what's the point? Or did you always stay positive at that time?
No, I'd say we always stayed positive. There was a strangely kind of blitz spirit about the whole thing. I remember fairly hair-raising conversations like, if he goes to court and he wins, then what happens if the company goes under?
Yeah.
But I got a very strong sense that around about the middle of the year, he got bored of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And his solicitors even told our solicitor privately, this is the last time we do a defamation case, because it was so stressful. I do, if anybody's listening to this and thinking, oh, marvellous, I'll go out and defame Chris Packham, I don't recommend it.
No.
there are easier ways to spend your year. But that said, he probably found it as stressful as we did. It would be hard for him not to. And crucially, we paid 70,000 quid. We had a solicitor for about 3 months. He had a solicitor all year, and so he must have spent 150,000 on that. We know from the newspapers he spent up to 200,000 pounds on, because he lost against one of the other people he was suing earlier in the year. He had a big year of court cases, and if you take the fact that he was supposed to have won £500,000 in costs and damages from 2 people who had gone bankrupt before the case was heard, he's in for the thick end of £1 million from last year.
Wow.
And even on a BBC salary, that is, going to hurt. So I would suspect, without committing any more libels, defamations, he won't be wild about going back to court on that basis.
Yeah, crazy times. We better be careful what we say. Yeah. David, obviously, he's been with you from the get-go.
Well, David and I were the guys who founded it. Yeah, exactly.
So, sorry, I should have said co-founder at the start, not founder.
Well, I tried to draw a veil over that. I found him drunk in the street and gave him the job he has today. That's basically what it was.
No, you found him on a crisp advert in Germany.
I did, yes. You saw that too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Poster boy.
Yeah. And so where do you see the future? Just carry on what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing, and,
it's
and
really,
fighting the good fight?
Really hard, because things have changed a lot. Now we have a membership scheme. We have 3,000 members, so we're very tiny in membership terms. But every 1,000 members we get,
a lot.
Well, it's enough.
Yeah.
I mean, 1,000 members means we can hire a good quality broadcast journalist, broadcaster who can get out there and make the case for hunting and shooting on YouTube to begin with, but also in the wider media. And we'd like to do more like that. So, whereas the shooting organisations are brilliant at solving policy problems, or sometimes, struggling solving policy problems, we feel our expertise is the wider media. We all have these media backgrounds. David's ex-ITV, I do loads for the BBC, even perhaps without Chris Packham knowing about it, and we're able to get out there and do stuff at that level. So that's what the whole gig is funding.
Yeah.
And as I say, we recently put insurance in as part of it. So not just third-party public liability for when you're out shooting, but also legal cover, because we have had, and I'm sure you've found this, a problem with police forces taking away certificates, even seizing guns.
Yeah, I've watched a few. Was there one last week on Field Sports?
There's just so many. It's trying to choose the ones that kind of bring something new to the story.
Yeah.
I had one this week, which was really worrying. There's a guy who will turn it into a film eventually, but the police went to see him, and they asked him lots of slightly kind of iffy leading questions. One of them was, "What's your income?" And you sort of think, why do you need to know my income for a shotgun certificate? And we get the feeling that they're targeting people who can't afford to appeal, because an appeal will cost you 10 to 20,000 quid.
Wow.
And if that's what they're doing, well, the membership thing, it wasn't enough just to have legal insurance. We discovered very quickly. We also have a lawyer on tap. We have the Field Sports Advice Bureau, FAB, and we have this hilarious lawyer called Layla, who is just a very tough lady indeed. And she is advising members. She can't go and represent them, whereas the insurance package, they can represent you. But if you're already having trouble, with your police force over your certificate, she can tell you what letters to write, and she's having incredible success.
Oh, amazing.
She's got this sort of never say die attitude, which I love.
Yeah. And what I like about Field Sports, your channel, is that there's clips of the stuff you want to watch, like other people having a great time enjoying the sport we love, but it's just so informative as well, with all the news section and everything in between. I think what do you find people want to watch? Is it, because there's lots of nice videos, isn't there, about field sports all over the YouTube now, TGS Outdoors, and is it, do you find yourselves as being the news article covering the critical
paper of record?
Yeah.
No, I think you just put out the things you enjoy doing. And the great thing about, if anybody says to you, would you like to run a YouTube channel about hunting and shooting, say yes. It's a really fun job. It is absolutely brilliant in that respect. But it's very hard to know what it is that people want to watch, for sure. We sometimes talk to each other about, stuff that, because we have a magazine show, so we get to put a few items in. So you can put in things that are delicious and things that are nutritious, and you can do both of those, and you can get a kind of balanced show out of the end. I think one thing that happens with telly, which is a bit strange, and it never happened when I worked with magazines, is people start watching a TV item because they want to find out about, how wonderful E.J. Churchill is, or something like that. So I want to watch an item about E.J. Churchill. Here I am. Click on this button, start watching it. The moment they do that, they've stopped being interested in E.J. Churchill. They're only interested in the human beings in front of them and their relationships with each other, whether they laugh or cry or hit each other, whatever it is they do. And they reach the end of that item and they click off it and they go, oh, and they're suddenly back to where they started. They go, oh, that was a very interesting piece about E.J. Churchill I just watched. They didn't watch a piece about E.J. Churchill. They watched a piece about people relating to each other, which is fascinating. If you can get a couple of useful facts in there, like E.J. Churchill represents terrific value for shooters, that's all the better.
We should really hire you, Charlie.
What they really are after is it's a people's story.
Yeah. But how have you learnt all this? I mean, you're fascinating. I had listened to you for ages, and I obviously love the channels and everything else. But you how did you learn? Is this just something you've learnt over time? I mean,
yes, I think so. I think media.
Did you train in media or anything like that, though?
No, you can't. I mean, one of the reasons that you can have a successful podcast is you just bring yourself to it. Really, it's a craft. I think media. It's a bit like bricklaying. It's absolutely not a profession. I'm always slightly worried about people who come to me and say, "I've got a university degree in journalism. Can I have a job?"
Yeah.
But we had one the other. It was a couple of years ago. We had a news editor called Deborah, and she was wonderful. She rang up and she said, "I'm going for the job of news editor." And I said, "Right, yes, okay. We have an age policy here," I said. And she went, "Really?" In that kind of, I'm planning my tribunal kind of way. And I said, "Yes, we only really employ people over the age of 40. Are you over 40? And she said, "Yes, I am." "Oh, good." I said, "Are you over 50? She said, "I'm a grandmother." I said, "Marvellous, you're in." So, yeah, it's about something. If you've done 10 or 20 years, before the mast, we will like you, I suspect. You will get on. And we have got these. One thing about, you mentioned Piers Marchington. He will always be Piers Marchington to be from now on. Well done. The one thing about staff over the age of 40, and I include myself and David in that, we are very, very good skivers. We are world class skivers. All of us are very good at it. That otherwise only employ people over the age of 40.
I suppose you can't skive much when you've got a weekly show, but
well, there's that, and there's also I'd have to take myself to task. You're skiving, no, I'm not.
And one thing we certainly experience with Tweedl is you've got to be careful what you post on these sort of platforms.
Oh yeah,
and that's where the membership comes in, because a lot of YouTubers in general, I mean, my fiance now has a farming YouTube channel, and she gets paid marvellously from, well, not marvellously, a nice sum from YouTube for sponsored ads. Assuming guns and cartridges and the shooting of animals, YouTube doesn't support that.
Well, nearly, yes, some and some. So,
or have you found the perfect niche of?
Yeah. So yeah, it was a learning experience, and one of the lucky things we've had. YouTube takes a different view to its top 20,000 channels as it does to all the other channels it's got, and we are about 19,992 or something like that. We just scrape in.
Right.
So we were able to help YouTube write its creator handbook, and we were able to help guide it on policies on things like guns and hunting from a very UK point of view. They're an American company. I would say from my experience of YouTube, they are broadly in favour of hunting. Individually, they might not like it, but the company, corporately, it's American. Everybody hunts in America. They had somebody go to their offices in San Jose with a handgun and start shooting. They are very corporately against guns. Google bought a company called DoubleClick, which was founded in the 1990s, which had a very kind of trendy West Coast, we didn't really like guns are demerit activity, policy, and they've kept that, I think probably as part of that San Jose shooting. So you have to cope with that. But also, it creates an open goal. When we started with YouTube, they were very nervous about us doing anything that might be regarded as sort of advertising other people's products that they weren't controlling. Now, they love us doing that. They think it's great.
All right.
So if you go down the route of opening a hunting YouTube channel, you're not going to get very much money from YouTube. It is, you're going to get less than you would from farming. But you are going to be able to go to people like, Game Bore, wonderful cartridge company sitting in front of us, and you're going to be able to say to them, would you like to be on our show? Because you can't advertise.
No.
And you can provide that for them. People like Game Bore want to meet, the kind of serious shooters who watch Phil Sports Channel, listen to this podcast, and you can provide that.
Exactly, yeah. And who in the industry has been a long supporter of the sponsor of the channel?
Well, Game Bore were lovely. Game Bore have been wonderful, but we have two who were, I would say, the most extraordinary early adopters, and bless them both. And the first one was Browning, I don't know what they were thinking, but
they've supported you right from the start, haven't they?
From the start,
yeah.
Because in 2009, it was a gamble for everybody, wasn't it?
But
YouTube was
nobody knew about ambassadors.
Yeah.
Nobody knew about product placement. All we were saying things like, "Well, we're slightly cheaper than the magazines." That was our pitch. And the other one was Zeiss, the optics company. So those two together,
which is a big company.
Yeah, they are. And actually the story of Zeiss and the internet has been really interesting, because almost all of Zeiss, I think it makes something extraordinary like 15 billion euros a year, and most of it is out of semiconductors and Medicare and bringing life into the world. And they have this small, slightly embarrassing, but it's where their heritage is, unit that makes rifle scopes, which is about taking life away from the world. And so we look after them. And so corporately, they've had this huge problem. What do? And bless them, they have stuck with rifle scopes and binoculars, even though.
Have they?
But we helped them with this whole idea of, we wrote this huge document about how Zeiss is able to kind of market itself in the digital age, and that's their policy, and they stick to that. And it's been a very tough one for them. Leica, similarly, they do cameras and they do.
Yeah.
And of course, Swarovski make magical sparkly unicorns and do rifle scopes. So that's a very tough one. And they've all had to cope with this situation.
Yeah, I suppose it's true, isn't it? They all make necklaces, and that's probably the brunt of the business. Well, Swarovski, and then.
And if some animal rights activist picks up a sort of special, crystal tortoise and then dips it in blood and goes, that's what they're really up to. It's not a good look. It really isn't.
Charlie, your world is amazing. I'll give you that.
And people like Andy Crow, you guys discovered Andy, I assume? Or is that,
actually,
I don't want to take any...
No, I'm going to give the credit to Sporting Shooter magazine, actually. I think discovering, tripped over is probably more...
okay. There's quite a few characters have appeared on the Field Sports channel that are now, you could call influencers.
I would call Mr. Crow an influencer.
Word?
Yes, absolutely.
Word, sorry.
And he's a top lad.
Andy Crow's a top bloke.
Well, this is what's so nice. He's just such a nice
guy.
He's just
guy,
and I think that's his secret, isn't it?
And
really?
bloody good at shooting pigeons.
Well, that really helps.
Makes good filming.
I mean,
and he's got a good surname.
Yeah, Crow, perfect.
Yeah. It's just perfect, isn't it?
So you start with something like that. I think it's very difficult to pull the wool over the eyes of a camera.
Yeah.
Okay. People say about cameras, the camera never lies. It can be very gullible, but it never lies. And it is very difficult on telly to be a dishonest person and get away with it. In fact, I'm amazed that the BBC has managed to do it so well. But there you see, that's production value for you. If you've got production value, you can do anything.
Yeah.
So if you don't have production value like us, then, well, the people like Roy Lupton, Andy Crow, they are just marvellous, nice people. Yeah. We've been extremely blessed. And I think that also says something about the kind of people who go shooting. We might have met people we don't absolutely love in the world of shooting, but the ones who rise to the top are...
They're pretty genuine, aren't they?
And let's be honest, they provide you with great content when you need it.
They are brilliant, yes, exactly. Why does Andy do it? I do not know. Okay, so Roy Lupton sells his birds on the side. I don't imagine we help very much with that, but he gives his time for free. But Andy is a farm manager, so why on earth does he appear on our show? I do not know, but bless him for doing it.
But he does a great job
because he loves getting stopped at the game fair for a picture. Does
he love a selfie?
Oh, he loves a selfie.
Does he?
Right. Absolutely.
We need to get him on here. Promise him a selfie. Then.
We do need to get Andy on here. Definitely. Yeah. Great lad. We've done some competitions with him for days.
Yes, absolutely. You have. Yeah. Tweedle's done lots with him, and that's been really. Tweedle has been at the absolute cutting edge of how we move kit of the media, really.
Yeah.
And how Andy, who, as I say, is a farm manager, he by rights he should not really. This is not his world, and he's completely worked you out and joined in with you. It's been great.
Well, I think I pestered him more than he pestered me.
Well, that helps too. Exactly. That's right. Park outside his gate. That usually works.
Yeah. No. That was a long day. I drove to Kenton back from Preston to get a video with Andy Crow on the back of a mule. 10-minute video, 8 hours driving.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, Andy. See you again.
Welcome to my world.
He's also rather clever.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Come to me.
Yeah.
Right, where are you?
I'll do the video. You pop down here from Lancashire.
Yeah, that's a point. You must get some diesel miles into the car going up and down the country.
Yes, I think it's about something extraordinary, like an hour for 2 minutes is the maths we did early on. Yeah. So actually, you'll notice that when we first started, we didn't have a bean to rub together. We still don't really have much of a bean to rub together, but we really were on our uppers then. And I think people sort of slightly thought we were eccentric millionaires. I suppose we must have been. But one thing that was noticeable is almost everybody who appeared on the show either lived near David in Kent or me in Somerset.
Yeah.
That was quite handy.
People like, the great shoots of Yorkshire and Wales and Scotland were not even mentioned.
No.
And do you think it's just going to grow and grow and grow, Charlie? I mean, is this going to be, as you get more momentum, it's sort of, you're a devil of your own success, but that's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, do you now do things on TikTok and various other things? Or are you sticking with YouTube, or is there new social media channels you're thinking about, or Threads or whatever it is?
I think things are going to change for sure.
The reason I giggled, sorry, Charlie, is because I had an ideology or impression of Charlie doing a TikTok dance in camouflage or something like that when you said the word TikTok.
You've seen it, yeah. So
he's going to do that now.
Yeah. I don't know what that is. I have people do that for me. I'll ask Mr. Crow to do that for me.
I'd like to see Andy do a TikTok dance.
You can tell him to come on the podcast as long as he does it.
Covered
in pigeon decoys.
We did get Mark Gilchrist to decoy pigeons in a mankini. We thought that was probably a step too far. Camouflage mankini, but still, yeah. I think the answer to that is it's going to change. It's going to change. So TikTok is new. One thing about YouTube is that it's kind of sticky. It seems to work for people. It seems to outlast a lot of other social media. And I think there is that what was really important in all our lives up until about 1950 was the flickery fire in the corner of the room, and the BBC effectively replaced that with a television set, which is a pretty good job. Well done them. And YouTube has now more or less, along with Netflix and the others, replaced the BBC as that flickery corner of the room. And so I think it will sustain as a result.
Yeah.
But, when we move into a world of augmented and virtual reality, when we're wearing those glasses or those headsets or whatever it is, or it's being shown around us, which is going to be a little while, simply the maths, the physics of it will take at least 15, 20 years to get to the point where we can, it's technical, but, resolve images at that speed in front of your eyes without what's called latency, which is where you go, you start to feel a bit dizzy. So, if that happens, then, one thing that happened already was our designer he's quite cutting edge, and he was working with a company on AI stuff, and he got them to do a perfect video of me presenting Field Sports Britain in German, which I do not speak.
Wow.
And I looked at this, thought, it's even my voice and it's my face. And the only thing that's weird about it is the face is not quite doing what the voice is saying. So I sent it off to my German friends and said, hey, good, well done, Charlie. When did you learn to speak German? I said, I don't.
Wow.
It's that good, So so maybe the future is, David and I sit back and just kind of press the AI button and just AI everything.
Yeah.
There's so much video in there. We just, you can have the...
It'll have every word you've ever spoken, won't it?
You can... what about that? You can input your own stuff. It's right. I want to see Andy Crow shooting driven piranhas. Something like that. Why not? And it'll do it for you.
Yeah. Mr. Beast has that, doesn't he? He has a channel in every language.
Yeah, what does he do it with AI or does he do it with...
I've no idea. But
yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impressive,
It is impressive, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think is there a problem at the heart of shooting? And go wide. Think about the future of estates. Think about what Labour's trying to do to farmland and all of that stuff. What could possibly go wrong for us? Or will shooting and hunting just abide? Sam?
I'm glad you went Sam first.
Can Rob go first?
No, you go first, Sam.
I think, as from my point of view, okay, I think the people that I shoot with and our customers, as much we will fight the fight, but like you just said, we'll just abide. And I'll be completely honest, I am not qualified to answer this question. You are far better, but it is a point and it's an opinion. I don't know, but it's the unknown, isn't it? We don't actually know what's to come, and that is the problem.
Can you look in your crystal ball and go, it could be this?
What I do know is shooting is popular, and it's becoming more and more popular. And I think sometimes, we're having problems, issues in many areas, but that's probably because of the popularity and the amount of people that are doing it. So, do you know sort of saying, Charlie? It's yes, I know we've got issues, but game shooting is immensely popular. Yeah, we sell more days than we ever did. You talk to all the other sporting, they're all doing lots a day. You know, Roxton's and Will and all the others, many others. I mean, there's lots of us, and there's more people popping up all the time doing it, and they all seem to, you know, everyone's doing really, really well. Game shoots are doing really well. You know, the clay shooting world. You know, we'd run 400 corporate events a year. 400. We get nearly 50,000 people a year at the shooting school. Yeah, the World Championships, there used to be 400 or 500 people. Next year we're hosting them. There's going to be 6,500 people throughout the whole week shooting all the different disciplines. I mean, it is a popular sport and more people are wanting to do it. And I was chatting to somebody the other day and they were saying, you know, I remember years ago when I've been here 23, nearly 24 years. I used to be slightly embarrassed about, not embarrassed, but I was quite cautious about saying to people what I did, or I ran a shooting school, or I'm involved with shooting or guns. Whereas now, I talk to people and say, "Oh, this is what I do." "Oh, my daughter
cool.
does that,"
Yeah.
or my son does. "Oh, my wife does that. My husband does that." Or we go on a weekend as a family and do that. The amount of people that do the sport, and I think sometimes we can sort of be our own. You know, we can damage ourselves, can't we? Whereas actually, the sport we are doing, the industry we are in, is on a high. I think it's doing really, really well. And I think we're all getting more professional. When I look at the change of our business over 20-something years, I look at what Sam's doing and coming in, I look at the success of yours. You know, there is going to be challenges ahead. Of course, there's going to be challenges ahead. You know, I think from the game side, it's really hard to justify what we do. And I think the whole thing of Eat Wild, and, you know, it is important that we justify, you know, what are we doing, the meat and everything going back into the food industry and everything else. And I think that's really important to justify what we're doing. And we're going to get scrutinised more, but we're only getting scrutinised more because we're a bigger voice and there's more people doing it. And that, does that make sense? So
yeah, to an extent. I think the sort of idea of threat, the only sort of threat you've pulled out of that is this sense that we have to be seen to be doing right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just to add to Rob's point, because it was, you know, I didn't have really much time to think. From my point of view...
Did that help you?
Yeah, it did help me.
Thank God for that.
Thank you.
That's right, mate.
From my point of view,
Teammates.
I'm aware of the issues, okay? But from my point of view and my experience, from running Tweedl to seeing customers to hosting days to being on the ground at shoots and being just generally surrounded by the shooting industry, there isn't a negative feel. And that's all I can give you feedback-wise. There is no one talking about a negative feel. You know, it's all very positive. Like Rob says, everyone's busy. Everyone's doing what we love. And everyone's hopefully getting a slice of the pie and making a few quid in the process in the industry. And then the people that are participating are really, really enjoying themselves. And so from my point of view, that's what I witness. There isn't a negative feel. Should there be? I don't know.
I do think we spent a couple of years ago. We did a lot of negative stories throughout the year, and at the end of it, I was meeting people at shoots going, "Oh, shooting's on its last legs," and I thought, "Oh my goodness, I hope that wasn't us." You know, I hope that wasn't us doing endless negative stories. I absolutely agree with you. It is extraordinarily, it's wonderful, it's fabulous how popular shooting is. I think there are some very big picture things rolling down the hill towards us. I think there are sort of three groups of people who live in any countryside or have a stake in the countryside. The people who live there, there's the people who own it, and then in the UK there's this new group of people, the conservation industry. And there is a very strong sense that the people who own the countryside, who are not quite the same as the people who live in it, are getting closed down, and the plan is to replace them with this conservation industry. And if out of a choice of neighbours, I know that people who own the countryside are not perfect, but I prefer them to the conservation industry. I think they would be a problem. There's 50 million acres. You know, we're fighting a 1,000-year rearguard action against development. That is going to happen. The conservation industry would like to be the major stakeholders in all of that land, obviously, and the landowners are the ones who are going to lose. It's interesting that the people who live in the countryside don't really have a vote in this. You know, we don't get the £2.5 billion of subsidies that go to the countryside every year. If you look at it from the point of view of what you get for your money, the government pays Birmingham City Council £4 billion a year. For that, they get a peaceful Birmingham. They pay the British countryside £2.5 billion a year. For that, they get a peaceful countryside. Now they're talking about removing that payment and effectively making it a free-for-all for the conservation industry, and I get a sense maybe diverting that money to the conservation industry. Well, if that's the case, will they get a peaceful countryside? Yeah. So I think there are these sort of huge problems. I think there's a little bit of salami slicing at the bottom end. I think we have got a problem with the fact that police firearms licensing is a basket case at the moment. And although they keep giving us assurances it's getting better, it's a very, very long U-turn to get better.
But I don't understand that, Charlie, because and this might be quite controversial, and I'm quite good at that on this podcast. So, but the whole thing about the licensing, why don't they just put the money up? And why don't, for the licenses, you just pay more to have a shotgun license? Because what is a shotgun license now? To when you apply, is it 90
for medical as well?
Well, but why don't they just put more resources? And I don't believe if we had to pay more money, so you get it for 3 years now, isn't it? Your shotgun license. Let's just take that. Why don't they charge £100 a year or something like that? Why shouldn't it be £300 that you have to pay to do it? Because realistically, then if more money came in and they could use that money to have better, firearms teams, and surely they could use that money better. And I don't understand that. That would be for me an easy fix.
Well, the reasons are two main reasons. First of all, the money you pay for licenses is not ring fenced for licensing. So it goes into the general pot. And secondly, licensing is a bit like, driving licensing. It's a public safety measure. You're not doing it as a service for the shooters as much as you're doing it as a service for the rest of the public.
No, I get that. But if they increase the license fee and then, and then ring fence some of it, and other ones over there, but then they could use those resources. They could get better resources to make the licensing a lot easier.
Well, one of the other problems with that is their pitch, the police pitch it's £540 for a shotgun certificate, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the lovely things about shooting, especially I've discovered through YouTube, is it is a mass market activity.
Yeah.
A lot of people make the mistake of thinking shooting's got something to do with lovely Purdy's and Holland and Hollands. And,
yeah.
It's not. It's for the ordinary Joe. And so I think I would argue against you on that. I would argue that it is a public safety thing above all, and as a result, it needs to be protected.
But if they increased it and we could get a better service, that would then surely help, wouldn't it, with the whole problem that we're seeing at the moment?
It would if A plus B meant C.
But what you're saying is that doesn't happen.
If the payment
That's
was
it's a very valid argument.
Yeah.
I think that level of salami slicing is, it happens, and it's always going to happen. One thing to remember is the people who are up against us are absolutely fundamentalists. We have a glorious guy called Ian Jensen who does stuff for us. He's a former Metropolitan Police detective, and one of his beats was animal rights terrorism, effectively.
Yeah.
And he says, he thinks the white supremacists and that the Islamic fundamentalists are just so wishy-washy compared to your good quality animal rights activists, because the animal rights lot will die in a ditch for stuff. They really, really will. And if you're up against that, then there is always going to be a sense of threat, especially since we're the ones who are trying to be responsible with guns, and they simply don't care.
No, they don't.
So again, that's the low level stuff, but it's a thing.
Yeah.
And the solution, Labour's solution against hunting and shooting, urban politics hates hunting and shooting, and they want to legislate against it. And I would quite like them to stop doing that. I'd quite like them to educate us out of our unfashionable beliefs and not legislate us.
Yeah.
Our solution must be to educate these people out of this belief set and make them see that if you ban trophy imports, you just replace African wildlife with cattle. That's the only result you get. If you try and ban trail hunting, you'll probably end up banning dog walking. If you stop funding police firearms licensing, you won't get fewer guns, you'll get a more dangerous Britain. Things like that.
Yeah.
If they could just understand those little basic truths, then I think we've done a good job.
And what's one thing that you think us as shooters put out there or do that we shouldn't do?
Or could do better?
Could do better, yes. Well, I think, looking at it over the long term, I think one of the biggest problems we have is with posh people. I think posh people have been a real problem. Well, isn't it funny? So after the Second World War, your average posh person was a bit lost, didn't really sort of know where to go. and how to present. And it was a bad time for people like me, you know. And I do think a lot of damage was done from a sort of latent feeling that posh people have caused all these problems, you know, for us, even wars and stuff like that. There was a wonderful guy hunting in a red coat and a pink face, and it was a film from the 1980s, and he leans down from his horse at the cameraman and says, "Why didn't you just go home?" You know, which is a perfectly valid sentiment. It was not a good look. It really wasn't. I mean, a lot of that is forgiven now. You know, I can walk around.
Hunting definitely got caught up with that stigma, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
I mean, it did, unfortunately, which was a shame because I come from a big hunting family, and you know, it was nothing. I'm certainly not posh. I know that for a fact.
I don't know, mate.
Oh, she's
But,
well, maybe compared to Sam, you know. But
do you mean that's been cemented in everyone's minds that everyone that shoots is posh?
I think that's part of it, but I also think that you know, if you have Bufton Tufton saying, I got a photograph at Shooting Times in the 1990s from Basque. In those days, it was called Basque, and it was a photograph of, here we are giving a brace of pheasants to an MP, and it was pheasants in feather, and you can see the MP's face going, "What the am I going to do with that?" You know, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
So that kind of, you know, that kind of sort of top. I know what it is. It's not posh. Actually, it's above all, it's that sort of top-down thing. And this is a little point to make, weirdly, that's sort of, strange enough, in favour of Phil Sports Channel, but I'll make it anyway.
Wow, you're kidding.
So the BBC and ITV and our sort of terrestrial networks of televisions have been, over the years, very much what you call top-down TV, okay? The guy on the Air Ministry roof through to the modern weatherman will tell you, weatherwoman will tell you, it's raining or it's not raining, and almost in a kind of, no need to look outside, I'm telling you what's happening. So, and this is a style of broadcasting we call top-down. The difference between that kind of broadcasting and YouTube or social TV is we are completely bottom-up. You know, everybody who's watching us has got their right hand on their mouse and they're about to click off and watch something else. So we have got to, you know, we've got to
Keep them
continue.
there.
you've got to keep them engaged,
exactly. And one of the ways you do that is you put your arm around the viewer and you say, "Look, I'm so pleased you're watching me. This is what I think. If you don't think it, there's lots of other people to go and watch. Go for your life." So we are very, very bottom up. Our view is, if it's raining, why don't you open the window and have a look? I think overall our view wins. I think a new generation of people coming through are abandoning the kind of Chris Packham version of broadcasting where you're being told what to think in favour of the YouTube version where you can work it out for yourself. The working out for yourself has got massive problems.
yeah.
You know, fake news is a thing, but fake news also affects the people at the other end.
Yeah.
So you know, it's about the audience having control. So yeah, posh people I think have been a problem. I think top-down people will continue to be the problem. Back in the 1990s, the old British Field Sports Society said, "Don't worry, no need to worry about hunting. It's something to do with pest control. It'll be quite all right." And of course, that was a lie. And in 2004, three things happened. Labour Party got £1 million from the Antis, so they got the funding. The Labour backbench wanted to punish the Tory backbench for the miners' strike. And I feel that the British public felt they'd been lied to by the British Field Sports Society, therefore they didn't care. They didn't care what happened to hunting, you know, and because lying to the British public is the biggest mistake you can make. And I think if we'd had YouTube in the 1990s, you know, if we'd had that sort of bottom-up version of broadcasting saying this is what hunting's all about, we'd be paying transfer fees for huntsmen now.
I know a few huntsmen, that'd be quite, they'd like that.
Yeah, they would.
Well, look, Charlie, thank you very much. It's been it's been a wonderful insight.
Yes.
And you do an amazing job and keep up the great work. But thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you and catching up.
We could sit here for hours.
We could. Oh, you've been brilliant. Thank you very much, both
We
of
might
you.
have to do a part 2.
Okay. I'm there.
Thanks for coming on, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Tweedl Podcast. New episodes every Sunday, although we did miss another week, but hey.
We can
We're
only
trying to
do
get
so
better.
much.
We're trying to get as consistent as this, man.
Yeah.
But
That's his full-time job, though. You do know that. This is our little part-time one that we're doing as a bit of fun.
But yeah, like and subscribe, do all the good stuff. And thanks once again, Charlie Jacoby, for coming on.
Thanks, everyone, for supporting us.
Cheers.